My G's, Luligans, listen to me. The human world, it's a mess. Life at the bottom of MLS is better than anything they got up there. The losses don't hurt as much down at the bottom of the table. You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the galaxy. Right here on the bottom floor, wooden spoons surround you. What more is you looking for? At the bottom of MLS. At the bottom of MLS. Darling, it's better. Down where it's murkier. Take it from me. Up on the top, the Cavs work all day. Out at BC Place, they slave away. While we devoting full time to sucking at the bottom of MLS. Let's get into it.
You're tuned into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
Oh my god. I will I will embarrass myself for this channel. I don't care.
It doesn't get any better than that.
Good evening to you, wherever you may be, and welcome to News Across the Galaxies, the midweek show. Coming at you live from the state-of-the-art NAG Studio submarine, currently located at the very bottom of the MLS table. I'm your host, Edgar Zuniga, with my NAG hermano on the ones and twos, Bryant Lobos. On tonight's show, we're going to talk briefly about how the ICE raids and military presence in Los Angeles have affected local MLS fans. And on a lighter note, to preview this weekend's LA Galaxy match against St. Louis City SC. And to help us do all that, coming at us live from the Lou, please give a warm welcome to a good friend of the show, the host of Flyover Footy, Matt. Don't you dare call me Big Bird again, Baker. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Big Bird was fun when St. Louis was a top 4 team. At this point, it's just sad. It's just part of the whole sadness. I'm happy to be here, though. It hasn't been too long since I've been able to join you guys, and I'm excited to be here again.
So should it be Angry Bird at this point?
Yeah, basically, yeah. That red, angry face. The city red, angry bird.
It works, right? He's a little red bird. He's angry.
It does.
Let's go knock some things down, man. How you been? How's life, man? Since like what, 4 days, 5 days?
Yeah, a week, something like that. Life's all right. Yeah, we're still hanging in there. All eyes are on LA for good and bad reasons. So I mean, it is what it is right now. So all things considered, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, I want to thank you once again for joining us on the Wooden Spoon Collective. Um, I'm sad. I'm sad that you weren't able to hang around, toward the very end, and
Yeah.
you mysteriously just dropped out. And at the end, I shared your comments, your parting comments. But thank you so much once again for humoring me and also joining us. Because you're an honorary Wooden Spoon Collective bro, man.
Hopefully just honorary and temporary. I'd much rather do one of those get-togethers where we're supporter shield contenders at that point.
Yeah,
We'll see.
it's always funner, right?
We'll see.
Well, folks, let's get the ugly out of the way first. Matt, whenever you want to, jump in, care to do so. This is an LA thing, but it also affects everyone across the country because I'm sure you've heard the news, and I'm sure you might have heard some stuff that might not be true as well because there's so much stuff going on right now. But as we all know, there's been a lot of ICE raids in Los Angeles. At first, the thought was they're going after criminals. They're going after people that could be a threat to everyday folk. But now they're targeting children, families of people that are taxpayers that are actually going through the immigration process and trying to gain legal status as legal residents and citizens. And even U.S. citizens are being attacked at this point. There's videos circulating where some people got rammed by a truck that had unmarked plates, and it was people that were, would be seen this whole time. And it turns out the people that they attacked and dragged away were U.S. citizens, and now nobody knows where they are. This, to me, reminds me a lot of something that happened in my homeland, in Nicaragua not that long ago. The communist regime there didn't like that some students were protesting about that the pension was being taken away from some of the elderly people. So they sent out troops to quell what they said was a rebellion, and then it turned out into an all-out rebellion. Eventually, they murdered a lot of young people left and right. And then after, for weeks after, if you were a target or you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and these people will pull up in these Hilux trucks, which is like a division of Nissan. You pull up in Hilux trucks, unmarked Hilux trucks. They would come out, grab you, pull you, and then you would vanish, and nobody would ever hear from you again. So that's in a third world nation in Central America, which is embroiled in civil war in the past and been dealing with a communist regime for more than 50 years at this point. And then you look at what's going on in the streets of downtown LA, and it's the parallels are almost like they're very eerie, they're scary. My family worked hard to get over here. We went through like the right process to get over here in the U.S. and became citizens. But now we're seeing people going through the same situation, and they're not getting the same opportunities that we did. It's really difficult to watch. Um, and to just mention real quick, the Galaxy supporters have all put out messages addressing what's going on. I'm just going to go over them real briefly. All the groups, Outlaws, Angel City Brigade, Galaxians, and even Lars has reposted some of the messages as well. They're all telling everybody, please stay safe. That that this is something that's affecting everybody, regardless of race, national origin, gender identity, sexuality, or gender expression, and that they're all working together as a Galaxy community to take care of each other through inclusion and shared purpose, which is part of what Angel City Brigade had to say. Galaxy Outlaw said that all viewing parties are canceled until further notice. The San Jose bus trip is canceled. They said, stay safe. We love you, LA. The Galaxians said, we know that we have many in our Galaxian families that are immigrants and are faced with living in fear, being dehumanized through injustices against our people. We accept and celebrate all cultures that make us who we are, and thus expect all to be treated with human dignity and respect in and out of the stadium. Ah, man. Matt, we're like in the middle of this maelstrom, and I don't want to drag you into this, but I want to get a different perspective because you're out there, and we were chatting about this just briefly. How does it look from your point of view? Like what's going on down here?
It looks scary. It looks horrifying. Following it on various social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, X, all of these things where you're just hearing and seeing people boots on the ground and the differences between what the cable news is showing, what is coming out of Washington, D.C., and boots on the ground of what's actually happening. And then you see the videos of what you would never be able to describe this as America 10, 15 years ago, just by showing a video of some of the things that I've seen about the people just waiting, like we were talking earlier, waiting outside of a Home Depot, unmarked vehicles, and just literally yanking people off the streets. And no matter what kind of thing you're trying to hide behind as far as a justification, the things that we're seeing the things that us all over the country are seeing out of LA is completely inexcusable, and it's horrifying, and it's really sad, the fact that it is the reality of America right now.
Yeah, I don't think I ever imagined we'd be dealing with situations like these. Like when I was a teenager, when I was a kid, and I can only think about my son. He's 5, and my wife and I do a very good job of sheltering from things like this until we feel he's at the proper age where we can discuss things like this with
Yeah.
him. But for now, we're happy to keep him in this bubble. But who knows? Um, I'm carrying my U.S. passport wherever I go now. Maybe one day somebody that thinks that I look a certain way or act a certain way. It's happened to me before, Matt. I don't know if in our last show I mentioned that in 2003 I was the victim of racial profiling while I was visiting my girlfriend, now wife, in North Carolina.
Hmm.
They said I matched the description of a serial rapist who was going around this neighborhood, and
Jeez.
it's just me wearing a fraternity sweater and broken glasses, and they took me out at gunpoint, slammed me on the hood of a car, ran my ID. When they saw I came back clean, they were like, don't come back to this neighborhood again. I'm like, I'm literally staying around the corner. you know, they're like, well,
What do you
we'll
mean? What
come
do you
back
mean?
to
Don't
this.
come back?
Yeah. So, and that was then. So I'm thinking, wow, if somebody looks at me right now and like some agent doesn't like the cut of my give, right? they're gonna come after me, and who knows, maybe my son won't see me for a while.
I
So stuff
mean,
like that is in the back of my mind.
but that just, I mean, that example really highlights the fact that this isn't new as far as things that like this happening across the country. Like we've dealt with this kind of thing for the existence of our country, for the entire existence of our country. The problem is now the people in power, the people in charge, and I don't know how political you really want to get, I'm sure really, but the people in charge are those kinds of people now. Like the folks who threw you up against a car, like you just described, they are who are running the country. And so now there are much bigger, much more money they can throw, much bigger armies, quite literally, that they could use at their disposal on our own soil against our own citizens at this point. And that's the horrifying part.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sorry. I would rather have us begin our show just talking, about footy and about our beautiful sport that we love so much. But the sad reality is that it's intruding into our footballing lives and infecting our friends. And it's hard. It's impossible to ignore.
You shouldn't
Um,
ignore it. I mean, I think we'd be doing a disservice to anybody who's listening to ignore it. I mean, it's part of the reality, and the fact that you guys are living and breathing it at ground zero of what's happening right now. I mean, that makes it pertinent to talk about. I wish we didn't have to as part of this preview, but it's the biggest story of all of the different stories. Like we were talking about the Club World Cup last week on the Wooden Spoon thing. And now we're finding out that ICE is going to be providing security of some sort in Miami for the kickoff to the Club World Cup. It's another extension of the awfulness that they're doing in LA.
yeah, no, absolutely. We shouldn't have to worry about this, think about this. It kind of reminds you of how when you see matches or footage from matches in like places like North Korea or some Eastern Bloc nation, and they have
Mhm.
like armed troops all around, in full riot gear inside the stadium, and they're asking people for like identification. It's like, is this America?
Mhm.
This is where we're heading. It's a slippery slope, and yeah. But let's turn the page because that, like you said, this is something we could talk about ad nauseum. Um, But let's turn the page because we're going to talk about our football teams, right? And in case anybody missed last week, we had a special edition of the midweek show, which we called the Wooden Spoon Collective. For anybody, yeah, baby. For anyone that missed the midweek show, we had Matt on there along with two other podcasters from teams who had just had a bad season. Right there, along with El Galaxy. I mean, nobody worse than us, I think, but yeah, pretty bad.
Well, I was
But
looking
for
over
any,
I was looking over the forum just since then, the one match since then, I think that we've all played. You guys were the only team that won out of the four of us that were on that show.
well, we didn't play, so
Oh, well,
we
you
didn't
won
lose.
before that. Oh, you must have won right before that then, because we've all lost.
We
Even
won. Hey,
more.
when you don't lose, you win.
That's accurate. Yeah.
And technically, we didn't lose. So, but yeah, no, it's you watch all the teams, and it's like, damn, everybody's slipping down this little antlion pit there. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, for anybody who missed the midweek show, and because I know you talked about it, but can you give us a recap? What has gone wrong with St. Louis City this season? Because this is a team that we expected to be a contender because of the president that they said right from the get go.
Well, two words describe what's gone wrong for St. Louis City so far this season. Olaf Melberg. The coach that the sporting director and our GM president, Lutz Pfannenstiel, Diego Gigliani, the coach that they found after 5 months of searching last season took us straight into the gutter. And he kept us there, and he kept us there until he left, until he was forcibly removed. And that changed fundamentally the system, the style, every single aspect of what you see by St. Louis City so far in the 2025 season has its fingerprints, Olaf Melberg's fingerprints on it. And it's because he played to not lose, essentially. The great start, quote unquote, great start that we had to this season, as far as I think like 5 straight clean sheets to open the year, that's because they played to not lose games. Specifically, they didn't play the aggressive, they didn't play the gegenpressing, they didn't stretch the field. They would prefer to not concede goals than to try and risk scoring goals. And then if you concede on a counter press or a counterattack, trust your defenders. That wasn't the case. It was play it safe. And it was one of the most boring types of soccer that I can recall seeing. And it was a slog week in and week out to try and find positives to talk about, to try and say, well, we had these 2 or 3 moments and the XG from those isn't awful looking because of these few moments. And if they just would have converted on these moments, then we would have had a different ball game, different story. And so it became a focus of maybe 2 or 3 opportunities that you get in 90 minutes every single week. And it wasn't anything more than that. You still had an abysmal shots on target percentage. Overall, you had terrible XG. And then the defense started to crumble. After the first 5 or 6 games, when we went to Philadelphia to face Bradley Carnell's team, our former coach, in a game where Philadelphia had about 5 or 6 players out on international duty, we lost, I think it was 1-0 in that. And that was our downward trend of our defense starting to fall apart, where Olaf Melberg was now getting really hammered, I think, from all sides. The fan base, probably the players, no doubt. Eventually, I know for a fact it was the players who were frustrated, but I'm sure the front office at that point was like, we got to start doing something here. You've got to actually play entertaining soccer. You've got to get back to what we want to do. And it just, the opposite happened, where he tried to take what he was doing, defensive mindedness early in the season, and kind of stretch that a little bit, keeping numbers in the defensive half of the field, and then having more direct to goals from midfield, where you're just putting yourself into like 1v3s, 2v4s nonstop. And the players had no confidence. The players were not converting on any single one of their opportunities. Our goal scoring this year has been abysmal in the run of play. Cedric Teuscher, Marcel Hartl, and Klaus haven't been able to get it going under Olaf Melberg. And at this point, now 2 games into the David Critchley era, who's our caretaker manager, not actually our official new head coach. He's an interim, but they're calling him caretaker. He has at least gotten the locker room back on board. Every single thing that we hear is good over the past 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks, as far as the players' confidence, the players' trust. And that just really goes to show you how bad things had gotten under Olaf Melberg. And I talked about it on the Wooden Spoon show, where it was only a few weeks into the season, he starts harping publicly in press conferences about not having the quality of players available to him that can implement the style that he wants to play. And so that explains, in his words, why we were getting the style and why we were getting the types of matches that he was implementing. And if you're a player hearing that, what else are you supposed to do other than just, at the very least, raise your eyebrows? But would you really want to play for a manager who publicly calls you out like that? And I think it has to do a lot with the fact that he was new to this spotlight, new to this environment in MLS, and even the media in general. We're coming from Sweden. He wasn't as put under a microscope, asked these kinds of questions nonstop. And so, there's a level of PR to that whole thing where he said some things he shouldn't have. And eventually later on in the season, he backed off on a lot of that and started taking ownership himself. But the damage was already done. And at that point, you're looking at now getting bounced from the US Open Cup, losing another match. The sporting director was a little bit more vocal about things needing to change. Memorial Day happens, and then it finally just blew up from there, and he was gone.
Oh my God. Well, you mentioned
I don't have PTSD or anything about this. This isn't just like eating at me nonstop. Don't worry about it. I'm fine.
Yeah, you're fine. I can tell. It's okay. You can vent. We did some venting last week, and it's good to keep venting about it, especially because it is mental health month, right?
It is
for men in general too. So you mentioned David Critchley, right? The caretaker. I mean, at this point, you call him the caretaker. If things keep going bad for the team, even though you said that they seem to be getting better, maybe they're going to change the title to Undertaker.
I knew you were going there.
You knew it, right?
I knew it.
By the way, real quick side. Last Friday, I went to a Rancho Cucamonga baseball game. Class A, Dodgers. It's like the very bottom, right? Besides rookie ball. And there was a relief pitcher brought in for the Quakes, and this music starts playing, and these 2 kids behind me, one of them was like, what is this spooky Halloween music that's playing right now? And the other guy's like, yeah, this is silly. And I'm like, Dude, that's the Undertaker's
Oh,
theme. I was like, damn.
I feel old.
Yeah, man, these kids don't know the Undertaker.
I feel old.
Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, it's a strange thing, right? To go from what you have with Barley Carnell to Olaf and now David Chrisley. That's a lot of change in such a short period of time. You said the players have been reacting better to Critchley. What are some things like? Because I'm sure there must be nuances, right? What are some of the nuances, things that you noticed about the way that they're playing that give you some hope?
Well, the way he talks, kind of really analyzing what they're doing. He's a lot more data driven, it seems, than Olaf Melberg, and so he's talking to us about PPDA, about field tilt, about the aggression in order to and what they need to do to actually get this 55+% field tilt that they want to have. And you can see it on the first thing you can see is that we're no longer playing with 3 center backs. That became a hallmark of Olaf Melberg. Is when you watch St. Louis City, you immediately knew we were going to be a 3 center back team, leveraging wing backs. And that was one of the frustrating things, of many frustrating things about Olaf Melberg, is he came here with all the promise of playing the style that he had inherited from John Hackworth and Bradley Carnell. But also, when you look at his teams before, he was very open to going back between 4 in the back, a 3 center back look, wing backs, as the team they're playing dictates, as the quality of players dictate. But he was never that open-minded as St. Louis City's coach. He always went 3 in the back, even when 4 of those 5 players, the 3 center backs and our right wing back, were consistently giving up 2-3 goals a game. There was one stretch where I think it was 11 goals given up by 4 of the 5 member back line in 3 or 4 games. And he continued to roll them out because, in his words, the injuries didn't leave him any other option. Now, I could go into specific examples about how David Critchley immediately proved him wrong in basically having the same types of players available to him in the starting 11. You flip the script to a 4-man back line using 2 center backs, and all of a sudden you add a little creativity to that, and you win a game. Legitimately, he did not have many different players in his first game, David Critchley, and he still made it work. So he's a coach that the players want to play for. So there's the tactics, there's the formation, going to 2 center backs and actual fullbacks now. But he's obviously a player's coach. There was a video that St. Louis City put out on their YouTube that it's a behind the scenes thing where they captured when Olaf Melberg was fired. They captured when David Critchley was announced and he came on board in his first speeches to the team. And you talk to the players, you talk to David Critchley, and it's very much optimism reigns now. Post game to a loss this past week, the players were still saying we are enjoying playing soccer again. We're enjoying what we're doing. We feel confident that we're on the right track now, and we're enjoying what we're doing, and we know it's working better. We feel we're in better positions to actually finish and actually score. Now we just need to actually do it, because the problem this past week for St. Louis, when they lost, it wasn't the style, it wasn't the formation, it wasn't the tactics. It was legitimately players didn't finish. There was one sequence where we had 3 shots at point blank range and we couldn't convert. It's that type of thing that is now the story, still the story is players finishing, individual issues. And that's another thing that I think you look too positively if you're a St. Louis City fan about David Critchley. This past, just yesterday, these days are all blurring together, but just yesterday in a media scrum post-training, he mentioned how he's going and having a chat with Klaus, a one-on-one conversation, trying to get his head right because he had a pretty poor game as far as finishing goes this past week. And just having that meaningful one-on-one conversation. And we never heard anything about that type of display publicly from Olaf Melberg, where he wants to take these players aside. He wants to coach them up. He wants to get their confidence back. But we're seeing that now from David Critchley. And there's a different aura, a different vibe when it comes to training. The players coming together a little bit more, being a little bit more vocal, but definitely seeming to come together a lot more. There's more laughing. There's more enjoyment out of it as you see him walking off the field. And I think a lot of that has to do with David Critchley.
Well, before we continue, let's address the super chat. I'm sorry, Adam. It's been there forever. Bryant, let's hear that magic. There we go. Yeah. So this one's for you, Matt. He asks, hey guys, one question. Has Burki been underperforming since his first season with St. Louis and MLS? Thank you, guys.
No. So I saw this question over here, and so I had a chance while we were talking to pull up a few stats just to make sure that I wasn't being a homer here when I say that. First of all, this season Roman Burki missed a significant amount of time because he fractured a bone in his hand. Freak accident late in the week at training. The ball clipped him wrong, and he fractured a bone. So he's missed a lot of time this season. When he came back, a lot of the issues from Olaf Melberg were still there, and so you had a defensive hole that existed. The team in front of him wasn't playing with confidence. It was a broken group, very obviously. And Roman Burki's goalkeeping status as an elite keeper, you can only do so much there. But if you look at past his goalkeeper of the year 2023 season, 2024, he was still second in the league in post-shot expected goals. The difference between, it's basically that advanced stat of XG related to the keeper in after you take the shot, how likely is it to go in versus how many saves you actually make. He's elite still in 2024, second only to the Charlotte keeper, Kalinda, I think his name is. But he was still at that level last year. So last year, even with St. Louis falling off and going down in the gutters, he's still an elite goalkeeper. This year, I have a tough time really tracking too much about him because his play time has been so inconsistent because of the injury. But this past, obviously 2 goals allowed this past week is notable. He did have a moment, just like I mentioned, where we had a poor finishing opportunity. He had 2 saves in successive sequences. I mean, he's still, if you watch him, an elite shot stopper. But the biggest thing I think that Burki offers St. Louis that's on top of what a Ben Lunt or any other good or great keeper offers is his ability to step up with the ball. He's elite when it comes to goalkeepers with the ball at his feet, his decision-making, his ability to act as kind of a third center back. Because one thing that we've noticed in the past couple of weeks under David Critchley is with, for instance, Henry Kessler and Timo Baumgartel as our center backs. You had them playing very much wide, especially on goal kicks. Every single time Roman Burki, if he wasn't being pressed, would carry the ball out into the outside edges of his box and beyond, and try to be a third center back of sorts, playing the ball out from there. So he's creating all these options because he's so good with the ball at his feet. And the distribution long is one of the most accurate in MLS, and it gives St. Louis an extra dimension in playing the ball that we didn't have with Ben Lunt. And so that was another thing that was kind of missing for a lot of Olaf Melberg's tenure. When Burki was out, yeah, Lunt was a good shot stopper. I would say average shot stopper in MLS, but he didn't have the distribution. He didn't have the confidence. He didn't have that almost like 5th sense or 6th sense about him as far as how and where to take the ball. Roman Burki has that, and he hasn't lost a step on that regard either in 25 when he's been playing.
I really wish we could convince you to take a couple of Galaxy goalkeepers. One is really young, up and coming. Another one has 2 MLS Cups under his belt. We'll give you both of them for an injured Roman Burki. Is that okay?
Well, he would get to play with his friend Marco Royce.
Hey, there you go.
But no.
Ah, damn it. We tried. Oh man. I was listening to you talking about Burki and his distribution. Oh my goodness. It's one of the gripes that we have with our goalkeepers, especially John McCarthy, who when the Galaxy actually won MLS Cup, he actually made a very vocal joke about it, dropping F-bombs about like, oh yeah, what were you saying about my distribution, blah blah blah. But hey, you won MLS Cup, man, but it's still there. It's still issues with distribution. And the way you were describing Roman Burki, how he could almost serve as like an additional center back or even a sweeper almost, reminds me of how LA Galaxy, from the very beginning, our first ever Galaxy player was Jorge Campos, who was not just a very energetic, very dynamic goalkeeper, because of his past experience playing forward for Pumas in Liga MX. He also had the ability to run with the ball, carry it from the back all the way up to midfield, and this would catch defenses completely like by surprise. And more often than not, it gave Galaxy like this extra edge for the first 1.5 years that he was here with the team. And it's something that we haven't seen here in a long time. A goalkeeper then can distribute with that much confidence. So you have you have your caretaker and undertaker. You have your caretaker manager there, right?
Yep.
And things seem to be on the up. But Is there any thought to maybe giving the team some sort of boost with a possible transfer during the summer window?
Oh, there's an expectation that there's going to be movement in St. Louis. That's a good question because I even get it from St. Louis fans. I had one that I was talking to earlier today who was just asking, do we think we're going to stay pat at during the transfer window as far as the players go until we find a new head coach? Is priority sign a head coach and then we start seeing if we can make movements, sending players out, bringing them in based on what this new coach wants? And I said no. I don't see any reason why we would be waiting for a head coach to sign new players, to send players outgoing, because one of the core things about this team is the head coach comes in to coach the team. He doesn't come in necessarily to recruit players, or it's not the German way. It's not the German style of how football teams are run. It's the sporting director. Well, there's basically at St. Louis City, there's three people in charge of either signing players, finalizing their signings, and scouting. It's the technical director, John Hackworth. It's the sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, and it's the GM president, Diego Gigliani. All of them play a role in this, but it's not the head coach who is directly a part, or has to be a part rather. If he's here, yeah, obviously he's going to have a say, but there's no reason to think that just because the head coach isn't there permanently that they wouldn't make a move. And I just point to last season as one of the pieces to that. St. Louis had done a lot of their work leading up to the transfer window last season, but Bradley Carnell was fired July 1st, before the transfer window opened in the summer, and they still made plenty of moves. They had Marcel Hartl pretty much on lockdown. They had Cedric Toyshirt on lockdown, but you're talking about bringing in Simon Betcher, you're talking about Jake Girdwood-Reich, you're talking about Giannis Horn, all of these movements that still happened later on in the transfer window that Bradley Carnell had nothing to do with. John Hackworth was the interim coach, so they didn't feel a need to wait to find a permanent coach to make those moves or to finalize those moves. And there's no reason to think that this year would be any different. And it's good that it's not any different because this team is lacking in very specific areas for very different reasons. And there's an expectation in the fan base that some big splashes have to be made, whether it is utilizing a third DP slot and changing from the U22 to the DP model, because we're currently U22, or sign U22s in general, because we only have 2 of our 4 U22 slots taken. There's a lot of flexibility this team can and should do to both bolster the depth that we saw a little exposed in the past few weeks, but also we do need some top-end talent in the attack, possibly on the wing. And central midfield has lacked an elite presence because Edu Leuven has not been able to be on the field as reliably as we all would have hoped.
So let's talk about the rest of the season because we're at the halfway point right now. Take into consideration everything you've said so far about the new manager, the caretaker manager, and some of the expectations that fans may or may not have for the summer. Talk to us, Matt. Be honest. Like, what is the reality of this club heading into the second half versus what is your more grounded hope about what could happen?
The playoffs honestly seem like they're slipping away a little bit, and you never want to come out and really say what everybody's thinking on this, but the numbers are not adding up to a likely playoff run. You're going to have, as of a few weeks ago, I think this was as of when Olaf Melberg left, we ran the numbers, and it was essentially that 2023 season that St. Louis City had where we won the Western Conference in the regular season. We were top of the table in the West. We would have to have a better rest of the season than we had that entire season as far as a points per game average goes. So as great as that season was for us, and we may not see one of those for a little while in St. Louis, we would have to do better the rest of this season than we did that entire season. And that's not a reality that this club is built and able to do at this point that you should be expecting. Because David Critchley can't come in. First of all, David Critchley is... expectations on the what we should have for him are guarded a little bit. He's the caretaker manager. He's not going to be the full-time head coach. There's a lot of people in St. Louis say, oh, but what if he does a really good job? Wouldn't they be silly or stupid not to sign him? Let's look at the body of work from David Critchley, because I love the guy, but I think he'll be the first to admit that his resume isn't exactly the longest or the most successful for a huge period of time. He's an OG St. Louis City head coach. And when I say OG head coach, I mean he started at, I think, the U16 level, went to the U17s. He's only been the St. Louis City 2 head coach for the 2025 season. He got the job last November. And so he's only been the 2 coach in MLS Next Pro at a professional level for just a few months. And now, granted, it's been a great start for that side. That side's doing great in Next Pro, fighting for first place. But the body of work is not there. What is there from David Critchley is an understanding that Olaf Melberg had gotten us so far out of whack for where we wanted this club to be and how we wanted this club to play, especially. Not just the results, but just what we were seeing and what he was trying to implement from the formation to the instructions of the players on the field to positionings and overall what he was trying to dictate on the field in training and during the match. That had gotten so far away from what Lutz's vision for St. Louis City is that the best solution for a caretaker or interim coach is bringing in a guy who has been with this organization for now 4 years and knows the system, knows the style that we're wanting to play so well that is the most important thing, not the experience at this level. And so that's why I think you're using David Critchley to get back to the basics of what St. Louis City is built upon and getting these players back to the style that they were brought in to play and letting them be free-flowing, pressing into the final third, counter-pressing in all phases of the field, and being direct to goal, but having numbers in the attacking third while being direct to goal. That's a big difference over the past few weeks. And so Critchley, his expectations for wins and losses, I think they in this past couple of weeks may be a little out of whack just because we won that first game and we showed well in the first half against Portland this past week. But in general, I think his role is to get us back to playing the style that we need to be playing. The hope is that because we do have good, talented players brought in to play this style, once you get them back comfortable doing what they were brought in here to do, then they'll kind of take it from there. They'll do their jobs and be successful, have the confidence that they need to actually finish the scoring opportunities that we haven't been finishing so far, and at least turn the tides and start climbing a few spots up. But I think at this point in the season, we don't want to look in St. Louis too far and try to set expectations for, okay, we're only, I think, 8 or 9 points, maybe 10 or so behind the 9th place team. And it starts to be, micromanaging those few points in each game. Well, I don't think we're there yet to where that's going to do anybody good, especially when we're talking about June and this mental health awareness time.
No, right. It's funny. We talked about how Sasha Clayson put up his mustache and his hair, right? Saying if Galaxy makes the playoffs, I'll shave my mustache and cut off my hair and dye it blonde or whatever. Hey, I think what if St. Louis jumps into that and says, hey, let's get you to shave your eyebrows too while we're at it. Both Galaxy and St. Louis make the playoffs. Let's do it.
I had a friend of mine who, for the St. Louis Blues, he said during halfway through the season that he would shave his head. Shout out to my friend Thomas, who followed through on that when St. Louis made the playoffs. I have not the greatest of hair in my family, and so I am scared to death personally that if I were to shave my head, this would never grow back. And I'm kind of partial to it to the point where like so the other facet of that too is I'm not overly pessimistic that we can't make the playoffs. I do think there's a possibility we sneak into the playoffs. I think things could fall for us where Critchley gets the team back on track. We saw even against Portland where we carried at least a draw into stoppage time of that game, second half stoppage, and we allowed the goal 90+2. So this is a team that's going into Portland and could have easily taken 1 or 3 points. I don't see a reason why that can't be the norm now going forward, where you might have some really close, tight games, but they're going to go both ways. You're going to pick up more points here and there. You're going to pick up an away win here and there. And yeah, I do see a real good chance. I don't know if I'd say 50-50, but that St. Louis can sneak into that 8 or 9 slot. And because I think there's that really good chance, I'm definitely not going to put my hair up for it.
Oh, man. Bryant put up his eyebrows once. He said the Galaxy was going to make the playoffs, I think. Or no, they were going to win MLS Cup. I forgot what I think it was 2018 or 2019. And, they didn't make the playoffs. And Brian had to shave his eyebrows in a live show at a restaurant.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
Eyebrows. Wow.
Yeah, right. That's pretty brave. So let's get into the game itself. It's only 5 matches. Galaxy has played St. Louis less than any other team except San Diego, since St. Louis came into the league not that long ago. In those 5 matches, uh, St. Louis has 2 wins. There's been 3 draws, and surprise, surprise, LA Galaxy has 0 wins. Um, and Man, that's it. That's pretty much it. Galaxy struggles to play away from Dignity Health Sports Park in matches that are held in the middle of the day, and we were just talking about that last week about how Galaxy St. Louis, for some reason, whenever it's an away match out at City, Galaxy and St. Louis have to play like the early match, and we're like, what the heck, man? This is like a clash of titans. This should be prime time, but no, they have us playing the early match again this time. Um, as far as player availability report is concerned, there's always Ricky Pooch. He's out with his knee. We've seen videos of him this week. He's still rehabbing. He's looking better, stronger, but he has yet to play in full contact. Um, as far as anything else, Carlos Emiro Garces remains 1 yellow card away from suspension and a fine, and that's about all we could say from LA Galaxy. What can you tell us about City, Matt?
City's still a little banged up. We have some players that are essentially perennial injured list players. Rasmus Alm, Joachim Nilsson. You might not be as familiar with them on the LA side just because they don't play often, but they are 2 of our highest paid players. And so there's a constant source of frustration that they're missing time. They have the same recurring nagging injuries in Nilsson's knee and Alm's hip, and there's just never a progression that we can look forward to them being on the field. So they're going to be out, obviously. Other key players out. So they could be 2 potentially, plug and play starters if they were healthy, Alm and Nilsson. Chris Durkin is likely to miss the game. Central midfielder. He's one of our U22s, former DC United player. Durkin is probably out. He picked up he re-aggravated his knee injury on a kick a couple weeks ago. And Edu Leuven Edu Leuven was ruled out, I think, already by David Critchley on Tuesday after training. Still dealing with a hamstring injury that he picked up last week. The other injury that we have that was kind of new from a couple weeks ago is Henry Kessler. I don't know if he re-aggravated an injury because he had been nursing a hamstring injury, but he is probably going to be out as well. Critchley said he's going to be fighting to play, but he missed training on Tuesday. We're going to see what he does later this week, but even if he returns to training in some way, shape, or form, I'm not optimistic at all that Kessler or Durkin are going to be playing. So probably 5 players at least out on the injury report. We might get a questionable tag for Kessler or Durkin, but at least Alm, Nilsson, and Leuven are going to be out. We just hope that nobody else picks up an injury, because in St. Louis, the running joke now is who else is going to fall on a Friday before the match. We had a string there where it was Roman Burki, Henry Kessler, and God knows who else. I think even Edu Leuven at one point missed the game and nobody knew why, and he was on the injury report suddenly. That Friday is still a running joke of who's going to get injured in training on Friday. And so you do have to watch, not for the player availability report, because that'll come out prior to us knowing, but just who's not named on the match day roster because they picked up a knock on Friday. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but maybe I'm trying to talk about it so that it doesn't happen, the reverse jinx of sorts.
Hey, remember that time that somebody picked up who was it that picked up that mystery injury right before the game between Galaxy and City? I think it was the first or second time they played each other last year, and it really affected the outcome of the match to our favor, I want to say. But I think it might have been Klaus. I can't remember. After mentioning all this, I want to ask you, because the 2 teams played each other earlier this season, and this is going to be the second half. The second leg of their series for this season.
Yep.
What's it going to take for Galaxy to defeat City this time around? Seeing how Galaxy finally got a win, and they're starting to get some young players involved in the offense and the attack.
St. Louis still hasn't shown themselves to be a good second half team. The goals we allowed against Portland were both second half goals. We went up at the 50th minute. We conceded the 55th, and we conceded at 90+2. That's something that Critchley in the game against the San Jose Earthquakes helped to mitigate, but it was a perennial problem prior to Critchley arriving and prior to Olaf Melberg's departure, is that after 60 minutes, after 70 minutes, St. Louis is going to concede. They're going to give up a lead if they have it. And if the game is tied, that's when they're going to lose it. So the first half has been a really strong point for St. Louis. St. Louis, if the Galaxy can withstand the St. Louis onslaught that they're going to have in the first half, because I fully expect St. Louis to come out of the gates really strong in the first half, trying to create chances, peppering the ball into their final third, into the Galaxy's defensive end, and trying to create corner kicks, trying to earn free kicks, get the ball just in the penalty area and make things happen. They're going to be aggressive. If the Galaxy can withstand that, and, I'm not expecting the Galaxy to press. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't a great, a big pressing team still. But I think if they can withstand that in the first half and almost just conserve their stamina, which I think is what Portland did really well. They conserved their stamina in that heat. It's not going to be as hot as it was in Portland, but the Timbers saved their energy for the second half. They didn't press a lot in the first half. They changed it and did press in the second half. And that's how they beat us. They threw us out of our style. They disrupted just about every single thing. And you heard from Marcel Hartl after the game against Portland telling us that it basically felt like fate that they were going to concede after they went up because things just changed. They couldn't withstand what Portland was doing in trying to disrupt St. Louis. The field tilt completely changed. And I think the Galaxy have that kind of an opportunity where if they withstand, then they could turn that second half into a big advantage because of the depth issues that St. Louis is also having. So the same injuries that we had against Portland, we're probably going to carry into the game against you guys. And that just means that we're not going to have the same quality of depth that we normally would. And so the second half becomes a liability still for St. Louis. The question is, can St. Louis go up early on and actually finish their goals? It's a tough thing to analyze because the underlying numbers were really good for St. Louis in the first half of this game last week, but we didn't score a goal. And so that has still plagued us, the inability for these individual players who have shown finishing capabilities before to actually convert on the chances that they're creating. If we continue to falter on that front and you go into halftime scoreless, I think the advantage immediately goes to the Galaxy, even if it's at Energizer Park, because St. Louis has been so bad this season when it comes to second half adjustments, and especially after the 75th minute in conceding goal after goal. I haven't seen enough from David Critchley yet to make me think that could change, especially after last week. So that's where I think you guys probably have the advantage if you play the first half right.
And we've been talking this whole time about how it's mental health awareness month, right? I think for both these clubs, they've been suffering so much throughout the season that it's one of those things where like the team that blinks first is probably going to give up a goal. And then it's, can they pick themselves up emotionally and get back into the match and try to do something? Because you've been saying all along how City has done well, right? Especially in recent matches to create chances and to be a threat to score, and the ball just doesn't go in for one reason or another. You just can't get it into the net. And this is something LA Galaxy has been dealing with the entire season, and which is why at the very beginning a lot of people were saying they're gonna turn it around eventually. It's gonna get better. Just wait until some of the players that have been injured come back, or just wait for the these chances to start to actually go into the net. But they never did, and that's when it starts to like really eat at you, and you're like, "What am I doing wrong?" Well, you're not doing anything wrong. The ball's just not going in the net, and it could be just dumb chance, or it could be you just missed by an inch or two. And at that point, when you have a consecutive series of these mishaps that take place, it really eats at your confidence. And so that's why I'm wondering, like, damn, whoever scores first is going to have a huge emotional advantage because I I can't imagine like but either team going down and being like, damn, we got to come back because last season Galaxy was very good in the second half. This year, not so much. So let's talk about the ref report. What ref report? There is no ref report because as I was talking to Matt earlier, um, the pro website, the official pro website, has been flagged for phishing. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's something that's kind of shady. And so they haven't even put out the ref assignments on any of their social medias, which is kind of strange to me. So unless you have like direct access to a club's media access, you
Mhm.
may or may not have some information about who they're going to play, because this is league wide. So we don't know who we're going to get, Matt. I'm pretty sure it's a surprise. I'm pretty sure it won't really matter because both teams are in such sad state. But once I do find out, I will post it and I'll share it with you so you can share it with your viewers as well.
Yeah, and we have one player returning. It's talking about referee involvement. We have one player returning from suspension. Conrad Wallem was out last week. He picked up 2 yellows in the match against San Jose, including one right as the whistle was basically blowing to end the game. So we don't have anybody, I know, on St. Louis that is about to be suspended with another yellow. I think we're a couple away. We've got a few players that are a couple away. So it's going to get noteworthy for us, but I think St. Louis is going to try to draw fouls. So it's going to be interesting to see who we draw and how many yellows that they are historically given.
All right, Matt, this is where the rubber meets the road, sir. Predictions. Um, you're the guest on our show, so we'll let you have first crack at it. I know it's exciting, right? You know, these two teams very hungry for a win. So let's hear it.
I'm going to go 3-1 St. Louis. St. Louis has only scored 3 goals once this season, and it was against you guys at Dignity Health Sports Park. So this is a team where I'm not confident that St. Louis can maintain a clean sheet throughout. I haven't been really given any reason for that because as I'm looking through the calendar, it's been since April 19th since St. Louis has had a clean sheet in MLS play. But I do think that they're going to come out strong enough, and I'm hoping that the Galaxy haven't gained enough momentum from your RSL win a little while ago to carry into St. Louis, but I think things are trending well enough. And like I said earlier, especially with the thing of David Critchley talking to Klaus and getting the confidence up for the players, if they can actually just finish what they're creating, then the floodgates could open because this team has been doing a decent chance. You look at XG per game and it's not poor. I think they're in the bottom half as far as XG goes and what they're creating league wide, but they're like the second to last team in XG minus goals. So actually scoring on what they're expected to score. It's a terrible finishing job by St. Louis. If they could just turn that around, then this could be a happy day in St. Louis.
Well, I don't have the stats in front of me. I can look them up. But here at NAG, we are all feelings, no facts. No, but seriously, it's very hard to prognosticate what's going on with this team, especially because after getting all the players possible off the disabled list and putting together the roster, and they still couldn't figure it out, and taking some huge losses against Red Bull and then Philly and San Jose, we're in this very weird, chaotic situation where there's no telling what could happen in a match. Like you said, St. Louis has been, has had a rough go of it. Things seem to be trending in the right direction. The same with LA Galaxy. One of the things that we were hoping for was for them to get a win before this break that they had. They had like a 2-week break between the match against RSL and a match that's coming up against City, and so we were hoping like at least they could have that W there so that it doesn't like wear them down mentally as they prepare for this next match, and they take time to heal and recuperate and look at what they did right in that match, because it wasn't all good. It wasn't all gravy. There was a lot of mistakes in that match, and RSL could have easily scored 2 or 3 goals in that match, but they just did not score. And that's what happens when you're not playing well. And RSL is not playing well right now either. So by the way, in case you missed it, Real Salt Lake have only won one of their last 19 matches. I'm sorry, the last 16 matches. I'm sorry. They have only won one of the last 60 matches. And before that, their last win was against Galaxy, way back in early April. So anything can happen in this match. I really want to say Galaxy wins this match. I really want to say that, but knowing that the situation that it's a match that early in St. Louis, and Galaxy has had a difficult time with City, I'm gonna have to go with a very tasty, intense 2-2 draw that is gonna leave both of us like scratching our heads and then wondering what could have been, right? But as long as hey, we share the honors, and it's not a loss that leaves us all wondering and in despair under the sea.
I think a draw would be sad. I bet your fan base might be a little more amenable to a draw just because draws in MLS are what they are. But we would be very disappointed in a draw. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So before we get going, I know there's probably going to be some Galaxy fans that are going to be traveling out there, and I know it's something you've mentioned before. But what are some suggestions that you have for traveling G's where they could hang out? In the days leading up to the match, or the day of, and what they can do afterward.
Okay, on the spot. So if you're around the stadium, especially because if game day is the time to be around the stadium, there's no reason not to be in downtown St. Louis on game day. And it's a 3:30 kickoff local time, so there's plenty to do in the morning into the match. The best spot I think would be tailgate with the Luligans, right north of the stadium, just one block, literally across the street from the stadium is Schlafly Tap Room. The brewery houses the Luligans pregame street party. They have the street named after them there, the Luligan Street. So that's the place that I would recommend being. But there's no shortage of places to go. If you want a brewery, that's there. They've got drinks and food trucks right there. If you want more of a restaurant vibe, there's a place called Cyberg's, which is just to the west of the stadium. There's The Pitch, which is another bar and grill type pub just south of the stadium. Maggie O'Brien's right across from the stadium is another great place to eat and get a drink. A lot of options around the stadium. Obviously, St. Louis has some of the best free attractions. So if you're making the trip and it's your first time in St. Louis, look up TripAdvisor and just go to any of the free things like Forest Park, any of the museums we have. The zoo is free. There's a lot of awesome stuff that you can get just walking around, and it's a drive. So yeah, you'd have to rent a car or something. But if you're going to be there for the whole weekend, those are definitely some things worthwhile. And if you've never been up in the Arch, you do have to pay to go up in the Arch, but the view is worth it. I will say that. I've been a few times, and I still like going up, even living here. You really can't beat that view.
Oh, thank you so much, Matt. By the way, Bryant was telling me. Bryant, you can't hear him, but he's somewhere here in the submarine. I think he's by the torpedo room, and he was telling me to share this with you. He says the Galaxy wins 2-1, winning streak to the playoffs starts this weekend. All feelings, no facts. And you can hear the torpedoes like leaving the submarine right there. I mean, but St. Louis is landlocked, so you got nothing to worry about, right?
Yeah, we got a river. We've got some water.
There you. That's right. I forgot about that. Well, there you go. I don't know if the massive NAG submarine can go up the river though. That'd be kind of funny. Oh my goodness, I was going to tell you something else. Oh yeah, I just remembered. Sorry. Before I forget. We wanted to share something with you, Matt, because the last time Galaxy played against City, we had visiting supporters come through, and my goodness, they were so nice. They were so friendly. Some of the members of Lars at Los Angeles Riot Squad invited them over to the private supporters area that's located, just within the stadium grounds, but it's just strictly for Galaxy supporters. And they were invited there, and I got to meet some of them. I got to interview some City supporters before the match. I think I shared that with you as well. Got to meet some really nice people, and they're so amazing. We wanted to share that with you, some of the photos. If City supporters are watching this right now, or you watch it later on, I just wanted to share those with you. Brian, can you pull those up, please? Let's see. They're gonna come up sooner or later in that little space right there. There we go.
Nice.
You can see we got LA Riot Squad. That's me right there in front of the flag to the right. But yeah, no, everybody was wonderful. There's Ricky, I remember him. And everybody seemed to know you, Matt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're like, everybody was like, oh yeah, I know Matt Baker. I'm like, yeah, you know Big Bird. He's like, yeah, I know him. The redhead. Yeah.
The redhead. I love our fans. Our fans are the best.
Nah, yeah, everybody was wonderful. That lady right there to the left. God, I'm so bad. I wish I could remember her name. She was so kind. She gave me one of her City little pins, and she was like, "Here, this is for you." And I was like, I told her I wish I could give you something myself, I don't have anything with me on me right now. But
Oh,
she's like,
that's
no, go
yeah,
on.
that's Valerie.
Oh yeah, no, she's amazing. Her and her husband,
Valerie
they're
and
really
Michael.
nice
Yeah,
people.
I know those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and she gave me one of her pins. And let me see, I might have it right here because I keep a collection. Oh, here it is, right here. And
Nice.
so, how apropos, right, for what's going on right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to thank them. I want to thank you and all City fans for being so amazing. There's, I mean, we have all these rivalries across MLS sports. So we had that ugly incident happen in San Diego. We've had issues with LAFC in the past, but I don't see why we should get along, or why we shouldn't get along, especially because there's, as we've seen, as we talked about earlier, there's much more heavier, important issues in this world
Yeah.
to have to worry about or deal with than a footballing rivalry. When we're all in the same league, we're all in the same MLS family, and we should look out for each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, buddy, I want to say, please put out your socials. So for anybody that wants to follow you, not just follow the city, but also just follow a very, very good MLS podcast. I know you, and you do such an amazing job. You and Santi, and oh my God, Phil, you guys do such an amazing job with Flyover Footy. And it's one of my favorite pods. I mean, they're all my favorite pods. I listen to everyone, but yeah, it's definitely very informative for anybody that wants to know more about City and just MLS in general, because you guys offer a very, very informative perspective. Can you put out your socials, please?
Yep. So myself individually, it's at Matt Baker STL on X, Blue Sky, all the socials, and then at Flyover Footy. It's just and X, Blue Sky. We're active everywhere. We put stuff on YouTube. We've got pods. We do like 3 times a week, player interviews, recaps, previews. If technology works well, then Edgar's going to be joining me on Flyover Footy this week. So we'll have an episode that drops on Friday with him. Exciting stuff at Flyover Footy, and we're always active. We're always engaging. And if you want to drop us a follow during St. Louis weeks or beyond, we'd love it.
And if we ever get to play you again, when the Blues or the Cardinals are playing against the Kings or the Dodgers, we're obviously going to go back into our favorite News Across the Kingdom or News Across the Diamond, which is always fun. And for anybody wondering, next week, we are supposed to have the other Matt, the one who lives up mile high, Matt Pollard, join us for a preview of the match against Colorado Rapids. We're blessed to have all these amazing Matts in our league. But hey, man, from me and Bryant and the rest of the News Across the Galaxy crew, we thank you once again for joining us tonight. To all you City fans that join us as well, thank you for coming on with us, Matt. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I can't stress that enough. As always, we're hoping for an entertaining match. For anybody that's traveling, be safe. Remember, carry your passports if you feel the need to. If you feel any kind of anxieties, do it. And have a good time at the stadium. Take your mind, put all your ease. Take all that mind away, all the stuff, all the problems, put them away for a bit, and just focus on how both our teams stink, and maybe one of them will win a match. As we always say, keep on nagging, and Wu-Tang for life. Let's go.